You all are perfect and amazing. Welcome to State of Awareness. My name is Danny Wright. I'm just going to get right into this. This video I want to dedicate to self-concept and ego and awareness. Actually, you know what? I'm actually going to just do, I'm just going to go with the flow of it. So, when I started this journey, like I said, I was always doing the self-concept stuff and all that. And I came to a point where I realized that self-concept is just inflaming an ego. If you have to sit here and attach a label or a meaning to something or whatever, because your ego needs an identity to latch on, that is what is ultimately going to end up manifesting. So when you hear these coaches talk about self-concept, okay, that inherently means that you need to be fixed, that there's something wrong with you. Because I've heard coaches say that your I am doesn't need reprogramming, you need reprogramming. First off, you don't need reprogramming, you are already awareness, okay? It's the fact that you need to stop identifying with the ego automatic mind, okay? So when we're decreeing and we're saying the declarations and the affirmations and stuff, okay, yeah, you're bringing that into your awareness, you're bringing that forward to your I am, because your I am is the creative force behind everything. So you're better off just identifying with awareness and not going down the rabbit hole of thinking that you have all these beliefs, you have all these things to fix, and then you got to do this, you got to do that. No, knock that off. There's no point in doing that, because I mean, in the beginning, you want to tell yourself good things, but you're not going at it at the premise of like, man, I have so much to fix about myself because I am this broken human. First off, like I say, you're perfect and amazing the way you are. All right. It's about observing the ego. So this is why it's so critical to observe your thoughts. Okay. I don't care what any other coach says. If they're telling you to flip your thoughts and constantly do it and go on a mental diet, that is going to cause you mayhem. You know why? Because you're fighting your ego. Good luck fighting your ego on that, because your ego will always win. It's like throwing a thought into your awareness, all right? Say, the ego throws a thought, like say, I am just not having a good day. I am just this. I am just that. Oh, they're just never messaging me. Your automatic mind said that, which you aren't. You're the observer of the automatic mind. But people get tripped up thinking that their automatic thoughts are them. Therefore, since people talk about, oh, just reprogram your mind to switch your autopilot so you can have favorable thoughts. How about you just don't give those thoughts energy no more and understand the illusion for what it is? Okay? Because you're allowing your ego to sit here and affirm for you while in the now moment using your I am. And the more you sit in those ego thoughts, the more they're like, say you're battling yourself. You're saying, I am this, I am this, I am blah, 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 whatever affirmation you're using. And then you go in right off the bat with your affirmations, and then your ego starts coming in debating you. And then you're like, no, I gotta flip this. These coaches told me I gotta flip it. These coaches told me I gotta do this. And it just becomes an ongoing battle. And your mental diet, I bet you at the end of the day, after you're done doing a mental diet, you'll wanna quit. I did. That's for fucking sure. I hella wanted to quit because like, I was like, I can't do this. You know, I kept doubting myself, but guess who was saying that I can't do it either? The ego. The ego doubts, worries, and fears. And so the premise of the ego was to guide us through millennia, you know, when we started becoming self-aware of ourselves. All right. The ego needed to make sure that we worried, feared, and doubted certain things in the beginning of our evolution, as when we became self-aware, like cavemen, is so that we didn't get eaten by saber-toothed tigers and shit like that. Okay. Yeah. Obviously, the person that is going to be worrying and skeptical is not going to probably get fucked with. But the person that's just carefree, lackadaisical, I don't even ever say that word, but don't quote me. But they'll end up getting eaten because they're just not paying attention. The ego is there to make sure you're surviving. It's a survivalist. It needs to make sure that you are surviving no matter what, but it's impartial, it's indifferent, it doesn't know what it's reacting to. And people are its biggest triggers because the ego operates in separation. And that's the biggest illusion of them all. Like they say, if you're not manifesting your desires, it's a sin. I know Neville says something like that, but the biggest sin is believing in separation, that people are separate from you. People are your mirrors, okay? So the ego will sit there, since you're identifying with ego, it will sit there and keep you in this automatic thought loop. And it's a conditioned mind, okay? It's limited. It's very limited. And remember, the ego cannot observe itself. So when you're sitting back, and you're just running on ego and you don't realize it because it can only be an unconscious movement, you just start automatically reacting. But it's the ego that's reacting. It's the ego that's automatically reacting to whatever stimulus is out here. Okay, so it'll throw you a thought, you react to it, and then your ego acts like they are at fault. But really what it was that you were already having certain thought patterns and all this of this person, you know, and or whatever circumstance you were going through. And so you get put in this feedback loop through the ego illusion. And so it will create it in your mind, look at it, react to it, you fucking react, you're all over the place, and then your thoughts just keep going, and then it just keeps this ongoing cycle over and over again. But people fail to realize that they are not observing the ego, they are just identifying with all those thoughts. They think that because the ego is a fight or flight response too, so it'll be like judging them, like fight, they are guilty, flight, you are guilty, okay? So in this whole entire scheme of the thing, the ego needs your attention. It doesn't know any better. It's just an automatic response system. It's not even real. It's just automatic response to shit, okay? So it throws a thought in your awareness, but you have the choice now. Instead of thinking that those thoughts are yours, you can have the ability to observe the thought, because the ego cannot observe itself. If you were just the ego, oh my God, this whole thing would be a mess out here. And thank God we got consciousness by our side, because it could be a lot worse depending on like the kind of thoughts we are having. But it's the person that we are being. Your thoughts don't matter, but people cling to these thoughts like they do matter. All right, but you can consciously step in now and start declaring who the hell you are, what the hell you want, and go live your life. The ego will sit here and criticize the hell out of you, criticize the hell out of other people, and all this other stuff. And this is where I think I want to make another video about spiritual ego, but I might preface this. The ego just needs an identity to latch on to, okay? The ego just only needs an identity. And if you starve it of the identity and start going with awareness, the ego will flare up. It will cause a backlash, you know, because it's like, it doesn't know what you're doing. It thinks you're in harm, and it really doesn't know any better, okay? But you are still the observer in all facets of this particular moment. So say your emotions get inflamed, okay? First off, don't let the ego sit there and assign the meaning of why this emotion is popping up. Just acknowledge the fact that you're feeling sad, you're feeling upset or whatever, you know, because consciousness needs you to release this shit. This is a form of shadow work right here. So this is when you use the ego as a tool, because the ego will get triggered. And if someone outside of you got you to be triggered, that means that's something within you that needs to be healed. But the best way to do this is to not fixate on healing yourself for so long, because that ego will keep you in that loop too of constantly thinking you need to fix yourself. This is why people keep constantly thinking they need to work on self-concept. Remove self-concept from the whole entire thing and look at the ego for what it is, an illusion that criticizes, judges, and worries. But you don't need to take it seriously anymore, because you are able to observe it, look at it for what it is. Like say, oh, I'm having this thought right now. Okay, let me just think of this thought real quick. I'm always sitting in traffic. I'm always not getting what I want. Everybody is just showing up so shitty for me. You're automatically thinking that. You're not who the hell wants to consciously choose that in their favor for them? No one does that. That's an automatic thought. They think it's theirs. See, that's where you start stepping back and becoming like, man, these thoughts are running wild. Like you've never just sat there and just really just honed in on the fact that, oh man, these thoughts are just going crazy right now. I'm going to sit back and observe it because I need to starve it of energy, because these thoughts are so prominent. The ego is so prominent is because you're giving it so much life. The best way to starve something of its attention is to completely remove your attention from it and act disinterested. This doesn't mean like, where do I place my awareness now? Where do I place my awareness now? Just stop taking the automatic thoughts seriously. And I think it was a concept for me too, because I always thought that you needed to fucking flip your thoughts, do a mental diet, and believe all your affirmations. Okay, so I can break this down too. The only way to starve it is to observe it. And then the ego is doubting and awareness is knowing. All right, so if you're not the ego and you're observing the ego and you know that the ego doubts, fears, and worries, that means that it's an illusion. that means you don't need to believe your automatic thoughts because they are false. Anything that is not God's source or consciousness is not true. All right? The Course in Miracles even says that. It says that everything we see is an illusion. Everything that we consciously are saying is truth, like what we consciously decide to say. I'm paraphrasing it, but nonetheless, what we are seeing through the ego lens is, no matter what, an illusion. It's for the experience down here. That's why they say this is the dream world or whatever, which is, it's just based off the perceptions of what we're seeing. Okay, so I'm trying to help you guys understand that you're operating through an ego lens when you guys think that you need to constantly work on your self-concept, because your self-concept isn't the foundation. You know, when Neville Goddard said, change your concept of self, people took that as in like, change your whole self-concept. And I know there's creators out there that say, Jesus even said, build your mountain or build your foundation on this rock or on the rock or whatever. And people were talking about, oh, that means building a self-concept. No, build it on top of your awareness. Cultivate your awareness. Identify with awareness. Remove the ego. Die to your old self. That's what that means. Die to the ego and start understanding that Christ is within you. God is within you. The ego holds everything back. You can work on your self-concept forever. But guess what? Remove the word work from it and just identify with it now and declare who the hell you are now, because all you have is the now moment, and you're declaring it with your I am, because I am is the only thing. You're better off just affirming I am the I am. I am. I am. I am. You should be so concerned with just that affirmation to just hone in on, like, I am the awareness. I am the observer of my thoughts. I am not the thoughts themselves. The thoughts, the automatic mind is all ego. The reactions that the ego brings up is consciousness telling you, hey, release this, because I'm trying to have a great experience over here, and your ego is dumbing it down to where it's making you feel like a victim, and consciousness doesn't view you as a victim. Cultivate it and step into your power by declaring who the hell you are, okay? The ego really distorts perception really bad for us down here. Yeah, we live in ego consciousness, and I can go into another video about the polarities of the law of one and why we are essentially here, but nonetheless, in A Course in Miracles, that book straight up talks a lot about forgiveness and the illusion of the ego. I swear, when I was listening to it, I swear that was another channeling of Jesus, re-explaining the Bible, because that book is amazing. And even Aaron Apke has a playlist dedicated to breaking down A Course in Miracles. It's a profound piece of work. Like, it helps. It helps a lot. It makes you understand that you are not the false I, the little small I. You are the big I, as in like the awareness, the I am. Okay? So as long as you stick to that and start separating yourself by calling out the ego, by observing it, calling out like, oh, that's an ego thought. This thought doesn't serve me. Would I be suffering if I have this thought? No, I wouldn't. So it's never the person or the circumstance. It's always the thought that causes you suffering. It's never the person. You can go through physical pain, you can do all that, but then the ego likes to step in and interpret it as something else, which boom, then you got a physical pain on top of an emotional pain. And that's a recipe for disaster, because then you're spiraling all day. But guess who's spiraling? The ego. Because the ego wants to play victim to the reality. The ego is so clever on some of the shit it says. I actually admire the ego because of the fact that how clever it can be. So you got to, like, the best course of action is to sit there and really call it out and observe it for what it is. That's an ego thought. That's an ego thought. That's an ego thought. That's not my thought. Who is that? This isn't me anymore. This is I am the I am. This is who I am now. I am this person now. But remember, when you're doing, if you're on the journey with the self-concept shit, please, when you do it, go into the premise of doing it from your I am, and don't do it from the premise of thinking that you need to fix yourself. Because I really think that's what people are doing here, is that they keep saying, I know coaches say it. It's a throwaway answer. It's a throwaway answer. You're telling them to go work on their self-concept over and over and over and over and over again, keeping them in a loop. Yeah, and guess what? When they start working on their self-concept and stuff gets reflected back, guess what's still there? The ego. The ego is still there. Why do you think people don't always get their whole entire manifestations and stuff like that, or it ends up leaving? Is because they started identifying with the ego thought. They're like, man, I worked on my self-concept for so long, I don't know what's going on. I thought my beliefs were the ones that pushed out my reality. No, it's your I am that pushes out your reality. You got to make sure that you're observing that damn ego. Don't let that shit run the show no more. It's pointless. There's no point. Okay, and you don't need the ego to live. Your awareness is fine. The ego is just a tool. Okay, but people have misunderstood this. They think that, oh, we need the ego to live. No, you don't need the ego. You just need your awareness. The ego just is here for the form of separation, for the veil that we woke up to, because we woke up not remembering who we are, what it is, what we're doing here, and the ego is the contrast to consciousness. The ego carried consciousness through a millennia, like I said, but the ego is the contrast for consciousness to experience itself, because consciousness doesn't just want to be blissed out, it wants to experience all of it. And I can explain that in another video. But nonetheless, I might be all over the place on this video, but I'm just throwing all this information that I know. So yeah, no matter what, separate yourself from the ego and start calling that shit out. Like, oh, that's ego. That's an automatic thought. I wouldn't be, and you'll realize it too, because you'll have circumstances pop up in your reality with certain people, certain places that you might have forgot about, that boom, when you get into that scenario, boom, it ends up triggering you. That, just utilize that trigger as a tool from your ego saying, hey, you need to release this. You need to release this now. So feel it. Don't let the ego step in and interpret what it's trying to say, like trying to create that separation of a victim or whatever. Look at it as like, great, I'm so happy this got brought up because I need to release this, because I won't suffer anymore by the thought or this emotion anymore. So what I do is I stop giving it so much energy. So I do this. Like, I remember in the past with my parents, I did this with my parents. I had to, because I had such horrible inner conversations with them because they were going through some things in their life and I was getting upset because I was trying to help them. But this is like when I was still operating in the 3D. So I would have these inner conversations with them that was like justifying myself, because I had these inner conversations. I didn't realize my inner conversations were my dwelling place, but my ego was speaking for me the whole time, justifying why I was right, why I need to do this, why I need to do that. And it was just speaking for me and just having these arguments. But guess what? It kept manifesting out circumstances for me to keep arguing about with. And I didn't know better until I started stepping in and be like, oh, that's just a conditioned response, because I used to respond like this. This is just that. It's just the conditioned response that I used to have. Okay? That's all it is. This isn't something that you're like, oh my God, I thought I was doing great. No, it's just still there. There's still a juice there. There's still something in there that needs to be observed and felt, released, and still not taken seriously. Your ego does not need to be taken seriously. The automatic thoughts, do not take them seriously. Don't be afraid of your thoughts. These coaches out here telling you that just say that your negative thoughts don't manifest. I mean, you can say that, but like, you don't need to form that belief. Just don't take it seriously. Just act like what's a good example? Say, oh, well, right when I looked at this mouse right here, I was like, oh, that's a mouse for my computer. That was a thought that automatically came up, but I didn't really take it seriously, because it has no relevance besides my computer. And I'm sitting here, okay, and then I'll end up forgetting about it later. But then boom, you have a very juiced up thought that comes up. It's the same exact difference as that mouse thought. Okay, I know this is not the best example, but still, the only difference is that you've given this one thought so much energy and you've never allowed yourself to just observe it and see it for what it is that it's an illusion. It's just the automatic mind going and 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 going. So don't take it seriously anymore, okay? You're all perfect and amazing at this. You already know it. Basically, I'm an extension of you. This is going to click for you, no matter what. So don't flip your thoughts, okay? Declare who the hell you are. And when you're declaring who the hell you are, you're doing it from the I am. You're not doing it from the reprogramming, ego, whatever mind. You don't need to do none of that. I know it sounds cool to reprogram your mind because it sounds like a cool ass concept. Your awareness impresses that subconscious anyways, but even the ego and the subconscious beliefs can be looked at as an illusion once you start identifying more with awareness. And that's like some advanced stuff. Like some people need to gradually work into this, like into the awakening process, but that's like fully going with awareness and doing the non-doership stuff. Okay, so we're gonna take it slow, and I'm trying to free you guys of this suffering that you have from the law of assumption community or the law of attraction community, because all those modalities are there ultimately to help you go get your desires, but also ultimately leads you to know that your desires will never fulfill you like you will fulfill you with awareness. That's a whole other thing. And I went down the rabbit hole. I brute forced my manifestations in the past. It wasn't fun because I just kept affirming and affirming and affirming until I realized that my awareness selects the states. And as long as I don't identify with my ego, it becomes a lot easier to select states. But you got to saturate your awareness with it. You got to frequently come back to it. And if you fall out of it and you start going unconscious, the ego will step in and try to blame you for it. The ego only will accept your wins, but it will never accept your losses. It will make you do something thinking that it's right, and then when it doesn't go your way, the ego will criticize you at the same time. So don't take it seriously anymore. You are the I am. You speak it into existence. You say your shit and you go live your life. Do not fall for the ego illusion. It is so clever, so clever. So like I say, remember, it's not the thought. If you didn't have the thought, you wouldn't be suffering. So remember, it's never the person or the circumstance. It's always the thought that causes it. And you can observe the thought without taking it seriously anymore, and you can dismiss it. All right? And when those emotions pop up and those feelings, feel it without having the ego label it as this is what this is, because it needs to label something or identify with something. And this is where true separation from the ego really lies at. You'll realize how freeing it becomes once you realize that it's the ego that suffers. It's the ego that wants and is attached and wavers and doubts and all that. It's separate from you. So start calling it out like it's separate from you. And I had to do this, but I'm gonna speak on what I personally did through my rampages and incantations and stuff like that on another video. But I just wanted to talk about the ego illusion on this one. So you're all perfect and amazing. Remember that. Always remember you're perfect and amazing. You don't need fixed. Don't listen to these coaches saying that your I am doesn't need programmed. You need programmed. You don't need anything. You just need to identify with I am, your awareness and all that, and start observing the ego. Because yeah, you're not meant to suffer. You're meant to thrive in this reality. Okay? I love all of you.